You know how people always say, family is everything? That's cute. I used to believe it too, right until the people who raised me boarded a plane to the Bahamas and didn't bother telling me. But let's rewind. It started with their kitchen. My parents' place had a kitchen that looked like it time traveled from the 80s and then got mugged by a thrift store. So I did what any self-respecting eldest daughter with a good eye for interiors and access to a solid credit score would do. I offered to fund a complete remodel. Cabinets, counters, new appliances, and flooring. I spent over $12,000 sand countless weekends sanding, installing, painting. Sweat, equity, and heart wrapped into drywall and tile grout. Mom cried when the backsplash went up, said it was everything she'd ever wanted. Dad gave me a rare hug and called me his girl. I thought we were good. Turns out, I was just the free labor. 2 weeks before Christmas, my aunt, Rose, the only woman in the family with a moral compass that still points north, called me. She sounded off, quiet. Then she said it. They're leaving for the Bahamas without you. I didn't speak. Not at first. They said you were too much, that you're always around, that you make them feel guilty. The silence was so loud I could hear the paint drying in my own apartment. They told me not to tell you, she added, voice cracking. But I couldn't keep it in. I don't remember hanging up. I just sat there, blinking, wondering how many fake smiles it took for them to look me in the eye while secretly planning a sun-soaked escape with my sister Melissa, her husband Jake, and their son, while conveniently cutting out the one person who rebuilt the heart of their home, me. But I didn't confront them. I didn't cry. I finished the kitchen, polished the countertops, and smiled while they handed me cookies from the tin I probably bought last Christmas. And then I let them leave. I waved. They flew off to the Bahamas the next morning, matching luggage, warm smiles, and zero mention of the daughter who rebuilt their kitchen from the floor up. It was a perfect little postcard moment. Except I wasn't in the picture. Luckily, I wasn't entirely alone. Aunt Rose, the only person who hadn't lost her damn mind, invited me over for Christmas. Her house smelled like cinnamon and dignity. We roasted chicken instead of turkey, drank whiskey instead of wine, and vented like two burned-out bartenders after a shift. No fake cheer, just quiet honesty and bad Christmas music humming in the background. Then she pulled out her phone. "They're already sending me photos," she said, deadpan, holding up her screen. There they were. My parents on a lounge chair with oversized sunglasses. Melissa doing yoga on the beach, like she wasn't the passive co-conspirator in this whole betrayal. Jake, with his usual half-smile, the one that always made it look like he was keeping a secret. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Rose joined in, and for a moment, the ridiculousness of it all made the whole thing feel less heavy. But silence has a way of echoing louder than any argument. When they came back, I said nothing. No texts, no phone calls, no passive-aggressive comments on social media. I gave them what they gave me. Nothing. That's when it started unraveling. First, my mom sent a casual "hope you had a good Christmas" text, as if she hadn't been drinking daiquiris while I sat in a house I literally built for her comfort. Ignored. Then came Dad's voicemail. Then Melissa's. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. If they'd wanted to talk, they should have done it before the boarding gate closed. But the twist? The first call I actually picked up was from Jake. "Hey, Emily. I just want you to know I didn't agree with what happened," he said, voice low like he didn't want Melissa to hear. That stopped me cold. Jake had always been Switzerland, neutral, agreeable, the kind of guy who helped carry chairs at family BBQs, but never got involved. "What do you mean?" I asked. I argued with Melissa about it. Before we even left, I told her what your parents were doing was messed up. My chest tightened. And she just told me to drop it, he continued. She said you were too involved, that you made everyone feel bad just by being around. That part hurt. More than I expected. Jake sighed. I brought it up again when we got there. Your mom lost it. Said she deserved a vacation with no strings attached. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, so they rewarded themselves with beachfront cocktails after using me for free labor and calling it love. Exactly, Jake said. And honestly, I don't think I can do this anymore. My fingers froze around my coffee mug. Do what? This family, he replied. The pretending. The toxicity. I have a kid, Emily. I don't want him growing up thinking this kind of emotional manipulation is normal. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about me anymore. Jake wasn't just venting. He was unraveling. And Melissa? She had no idea what was coming. Jake's voice stayed in my head long after the call ended. Not because he said something shocking by now. Nothing shocked me, but because of the weight behind his words. You could hear it in the pauses, the exhausted sighs. This wasn't just about a family trip anymore. It was about truth. The kind that ruins illusions and changes the trajectory of everything you thought was stable. Melissa and Jake had always been that annoyingly perfect couple. Polished, polite, and plastic. They spoke in Instagram captions. Their fights, if they ever had them, were hidden behind brunch photos and filtered sunsets. But now, all that veneer was cracking. And beneath it, a marriage that had been corroding slowly under the surface, quietly poisoned by my parents' manipulation and Melissa's blind loyalty to them. Jake called again, 3 days later. He sounded tired but certain. I had a feeling I already knew what he was going to say. I told her I was done, he said. My stomach dropped, even though I'd braced for it. You told Melissa? Yep. Sat her down and told her this isn't the life I want. That I won't raise our son around people who confuse control for love. Damn, I whispered. What did she say? She screamed. First at me. Then she called your parents. Like clockwork. Of course she did. And? I asked, even though I already knew. They blamed you. Said you poisoned me against them. Said you were jealous and vindictive. I rolled my eyes so hard I could see my own disappointment. Jake chuckled bitterly. Melissa called you toxic. Said you orchestrated this whole thing like it was some kind of revenge plot. Oh yes, I said dryly. Because clearly I'm the master manipulator who spends her free time destroying families instead of, installing backsplashes. She told me you were cold. That you punished her with silence. I told her silence was the kindest option available. That made me smile. She didn't take that well, Jake added. She actually said you owed her an apology. That smile twisted into a smirk. Did she happen to mention the thousands I spent on her parents' house? Not once. We fell into silence for a moment. The kind that doesn't feel awkward, just heavy with shared understanding. They're not used to people walking away, I said finally. They live in this little reality they've curated where no one calls them out. And if you do, suddenly you're the problem. Jake exhaled. That's what I realized. This isn't about Christmas or the trip. It's about patterns. Manipulation masked as tradition. And I'm done. I wish I could say I'm surprised, I said. But I've been here for years, Jake, watching them twist truth until it looks like love. He paused. I wish I'd seen it earlier. You saw what you were allowed to see. He sighed again. Melissa said I embarrassed her, that I made a scene. You stood up to them. That's all it takes to become public enemy number one. I could hear his kid in the background, playing with something plastic and loud. Life going on, unbothered. Jake's voice softened. He deserves better. You both do. We ended the call without any dramatic goodbyes. No promises to keep in touch, just quiet solidarity. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was standing on this emotional battlefield alone. But of course, this was my family. And when they start losing control, they don't regroup, they retaliate. That night, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Melissa was standing there. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, her coat half-zipped like she left the house mid-breakdown. He left me, she said. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in, dropped her bag like a declaration of war, and collapsed onto my couch. He just packed up and walked out. Said he was done. Just like that. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You didn't see it coming? She glared at me through red eyes. Don't pretend like you're innocent in this. I haven't said a word to him since he got back. You didn't have to, she snapped. You sat there and fed him poison with your silence. With your victim act. I tilted my head. You mean the part where I paid for your parents' kitchen and got abandoned for Christmas? That victim act? Her jaw clenched. I lost everything, she said quietly. I stayed silent. My husband, my home. My parents are heartbroken, your parents? I interrupted, actually laughing. The ones who told Aunt Rose I was too much? Who booked a tropical escape and called it self-care? You could have fixed this. I took a step forward. What exactly was I supposed to fix? The years of emotional gaslighting? The entitlement? The lies? Tears welled in her eyes again, but I didn't soften. Not this time. You made your choices, Melissa. You stood by them when they used me. Now the tide's turning, and you're shocked that you're getting wet?" She stood abruptly. "They'll never forgive you for this." I smiled, slow and deliberate. "Good." She left in a flurry of slamming doors and muttered curses. And I let her, because for once, I wasn't the one begging for scraps of love from people who fed on control. You'd think that after Melissa's mascara-streaked exit, things would cool off. You'd think the universe might give me a breather. But in my family, emotional warfare isn't a phase, it's a tradition. The next evening, just as I was settling into the rare luxury of peace, another knock came at my door. I didn't even flinch. Something in my gut already knew. It was them, my parents. Darren and Paula stood there on my doorstep, like a pair of suburban storm clouds. My mom's eyes were wild, and my dad had the stiff, defensive posture of someone who already knew this wasn't going to end well. "You happy now?" my mom barked, before I even got a full breath in. I leaned against the frame, arms crossed. "Was that a question, or just noise?" "You broke up your sister's marriage!" she shrieked. I blinked. Wow, that's some Olympic-level delusion. "You poisoned Jake against Melissa, against us," my dad added, voice low but boiling with judgment. Before I could respond, someone else stepped out of the hallway shadows behind me. Jake. He had followed them here. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. Either way, he wasn't hiding. He walked up beside me, calm, composed, and said, "No, Emily didn't ruin anything. You did." My dad turned to him sharply. "Don't talk to my wife like that." Jake didn't flinch. He crossed his arms. Or what? The silence that followed was volcanic. They weren't used to resistance. Especially not from someone who married into the family. In their world, in-laws were accessories, agreeable, disposable, and, above all, obedient. Then headlights flashed across the driveway. A car door slammed, and there she was, Aunt Rose, storming up the walkway like she'd been summoned by the collective energy of everyone who'd had enough. My mom whirled on her. "You don't even know what's going on." "Oh, I know exactly what's going on," Rose snapped. "You're mad because Jake finally grew a spine, and your golden child's life is unraveling because she built it on a foundation of lies and loyalty to narcissists." My mom's face twisted. "You don't get to talk about our family like that." Rose laughed, dry and loud. "You mean the family you excommunicated your daughter from over Christmas while sipping mojitos in the Bahamas, paid for by the same woman you labeled too much?" I should have been recording this. My dad tried his last defense. "She was joking, Rose. You know Paula, she exaggerates." Jake looked at me. "Emily, did they ever offer to pay you back? For the kitchen?" I shook my head. "Not once." Jake nodded. "And there it is." My mom's voice cracked. "We never used her." Rose raised an eyebrow. 12 grand says otherwise." Dad scoffed. Desperate now. "This is pathetic." "What's pathetic?" Jake snapped. "Is using your daughter for her money, her time, her love, and then leaving her behind like she's some seasonal inconvenience." He wasn't finished. "You called her selfish, but you expected her to pour herself into your home like it was her job. You took advantage of her kindness, then cut her out the second it stopped being convenient. That's not parenting. That's emotional exploitation." For the first time, my mom was speechless, and that scared her more than any raised voice ever could. Then she did what manipulators always do when they lose control. She deflected. "You've poisoned this family," she hissed at me. "Ever since you were a child, moody, difficult, dramatic. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us?" "Repay you?" I said, stepping forward. "I renovated your damn kitchen. You think that buys you loyalty? I thought it bought me basic decency." That was it. There was nothing more to say. No apology would fix what they had broken. No revisionist history could undo what they had done. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was seismic. The kind that rearranges dynamics and shatters illusions in one breathless beat. Then, true to form, they stormed off. My mom shoved past Jake and Rose like a villain fleeing her own downfall, dragging my father behind her. As she reached the car, she turned back and shouted the final act in her little martyr play. "You're all pathetic." We watched them drive off into the night, taillights fading into the kind of darkness they've always preferred, the kind that hides the truth. Jake let out a long breath. I need a drink. Rose nodded. I brought bourbon. We went inside, poured 3 glasses, and for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known. I was missing. Freedom. Not the cheesy Instagram kind. Real freedom. The kind that comes when the people who've been holding you emotionally hostage finally lose the keys to your mind. We toasted. Not to revenge. Not even to justice. We toasted to survival. To calling things what they are. To burning bridges that only ever led back to pain. And as the glass touched my lips, I realized something else. They weren't done trying to make me the villain, but I was done playing the role. For a while, it was quiet. Not peaceful, just the eerie calm that happens when a storm pauses to catch its breath. But you can always tell when the eye of the hurricane is passing overhead. You don't relax, you wait. The first tremor came in the form of a text from Jake, selling the lake house. Want to grab a beer? It took me a second to process what I was reading. See, the lake house, technically, a cozy 2-bedroom cabin overlooking a quiet stretch of forest and water, wasn't just property. It was ritual. Summers, long weekends, even the occasional snow-drenched Christmas. That cabin had been the family's idea of paradise. My parents loved it, acted like they owned it. They never paid a dime toward it, of course. Didn't lift a finger to maintain it either. But that didn't stop them from treating it like a generational heirloom passed lovingly down to them by the gods of entitlement. The truth? Jake bought it. Not them. Not Melissa. Jake. And now, he was selling it. We met up at a little dive bar near the edge of town. Jake was already 2 sips into a pint when I slid into the booth across from him. You serious? I asked. He nodded. Listing it tomorrow. I blinked. You know they're going to lose their minds. That's kind of the point. He took another drink and looked completely at peace with his decision. I kept that place for Melissa. I thought it'd be our family escape, our kids' summer tradition. But now, it's just another place where lies were told and resentment grew under the floorboards. I stared at him for a moment, half in admiration, half in disbelief. Damn, Jake. Divorce turned you poetic. He laughed. No, clarity did. The fallout was swift. My phone lit up a day later, with calls from both parents, none of which I answered. Then came the texts from Melissa, full of expletives and typos. Someone was spiraling. Aunt Rose filled me in later, giddy with gossip. Apparently, my mother had gone full meltdown mode, claimed Jake was destroying our family legacy and robbing our future grandchildren. My dad tried to argue that they had invested so much in the cabin, conveniently forgetting that the most they ever brought to that house was a cooler full of beer and their sense of ownership. Jake, in classic fashion, shut it all down with a single line. You don't own it. I do. And I'm done letting you act like you do. Mic drop. But the best part wasn't the lake house. It was what came next. Uncle Rose, bless her bourbon drinking, boundary-setting soul, stopped helping them too. See, for years, she'd been the family's handyman by default. Plumbing issue? Call Rose. Broken railing? Rose. Leaky sink? Guess who? She never complained, just quietly fixed whatever broke and went back to her life. Until now. They called me about the busted garbage disposal, she told me one afternoon, sipping her drink like a queen. I told them to call an actual contractor. Did they lose their minds? Oh, Paula hung up on me. Darren texted me a sad face emoji. I think they think that's diplomacy. I nearly spit out my coffee. They said the house is falling apart, she added, barely hiding her satisfaction. The oven stopped working. The garbage disposal's jammed. The living room ceiling has a crack. And the lake house they used to claim like squatters? Gone. I couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't that I enjoyed their suffering. Not really. What I enjoyed was the math of it all. Actions. Consequences. They spent years building a world where they were the center, and everyone else orbited around their comfort. They manipulated, ignored, and discarded. And now, their universe was collapsing in slow motion. And the best part? I didn't lift a damn finger. No revenge plans, no grand schemes, no public confrontations. Just silence, just boundaries. Turns out, those are more destructive to entitled people than a full-blown screaming match. They can survive chaos. They can manipulate conflict, but they have no defense against being cut off. And now, they were isolated. No Jake, no Melissa's golden marriage, no access to the lake house, no more free labor from Rose or me. Just a hollow home with cracked ceilings and a kitchen they didn't deserve, gleaming and perfect like the daughter they'd thrown away. Time passed. Not much, just enough for everyone to start pretending they'd moved on. My parents? They doubled down on their narrative, spinning tales about how their ungrateful daughter and traitorous son-in-law tore the family apart. I was apparently a master manipulator, and Jake, poor Jake, was merely my puppet. Melissa stopped talking to me. Again, no surprise. The only thing more fragile than her marriage was her pride. Jake and I checked in occasionally, not close but solid, like soldiers who survived the same emotional war. The lake house was sold within weeks, and as if karma had an overactive imagination, the new buyers were a retired lesbian couple who planned to turn it into a yoga and wellness retreat. Aunt Rose nearly cried from joy. "They're naming it Serenity Pines," she told me, laughing. Can you imagine Darren and Paula doing hot yoga with strangers in their former sanctuary? We both howled. But of course, peace is never permanent, especially not with people like them. It came in the form of a call from a number I didn't recognize, which I ignored. Then a voicemail, then 2 more calls. All within 20 minutes. I finally listened. It was my mom. "Emily, honey," her voice trembled. "I know we haven't spoken, and I know you're upset, but Melissa's going through something. Greg, well, he's made some mistakes, and we don't know what to do." Greg, right. Melissa's rebound project turned husband, a man who couldn't stay employed, who drank more than he spoke, and whose temper was rumored to have gotten him kicked out of 2 bars and a bowling alley. Apparently, Greg had lost, or pawned, almost every valuable in their possession. My dad's watch, family heirlooms, even the wedding rings from her marriage to Jake, all gone. I sat with the silence for a while. Then, out of morbid curiosity, I answered the next call. "Emily, thank God," my mom rushed in. "Melissa's a wreck. Greg, well, he's not the man we thought he was." Shocker, the first deadpanned. "Please," she said, her voice straining towards something that sounded like humility. "We need your help." I waited a beat, then another, then smiled. "Not my problem." Silence. "You're still angry," she said quietly. I tilted my head. "No, I'm just uninterested. But we're family." "We're." She took a shaky breath. "So that's it? You're just cutting us off?" I shrugged. "Guess so." I hung up. Later that night, Jake called. "You'll never believe this," he said, barely containing his laughter. "Melissa called me." I raised an eyebrow. "After all that? Begged me for help. Said she's got nothing, no money. Greg's out half the time and drunk the other half. What'd you say?" I told her I'd keep supporting my kid. That's it. I leaned back on my couch, smiling. "And?" she cried. Said she had nowhere left to go. "Well," I said, "maybe she should try the Bahamas." He laughed so hard I thought he might drop his phone. That was the moment. Right there. The full circle. They cut me out of a family trip like I was excess baggage. They built a castle on my time, my money, and my silence. And when it all fell apart, they looked around for someone to blame and found themselves holding the matches. I didn't take revenge. I didn't sabotage anyone. I didn't yell, expose, or post. I simply stepped back, and they collapsed under the weight of their own choices. That's the kind of revenge you don't plan. It just happens. It's earned. Now, I'm good. The kitchen I built is falling apart again. The pipes are backing up, the cabinet doors are sagging, and the oven's still busted. But I won't fix it. The lake house is gone, filled now with strangers doing downward dog and journaling about inner peace. Melissa is married to a ghost of a man who drank away their legacy. And me? I've never felt more whole. No more guilt. No more begging for a seat at their table. I built my own damn table. And you know what? It's nicer.